Good afternoon, families. Welcome again to our Family Fridays series. We're so happy that you could join us this afternoon. I want to give you just a little rundown of how this afternoon is going to work. For those of you who have already submitted your questions, thank you so much. If you have not yet, please do so. We can ask questions for as long as we have time for. Now, do you have to stick around for the entire 2 hours? No, you absolutely do not. If you get your question answered in the first 5 minutes and you have somewhere to be, please do feel free to hop off. There will also be families hopping on throughout the 2 hours, so you may hear me repeat instructions just a couple times, but please do continue to ask those questions. We will get to as many of those as we have time for. Now, with us today, we have some very special guests to help us answer these questions. We have Maggie Evans, who is the Director of Residence Life, and she's also an Associate Vice President for Student Affairs. We're very thankful that she is with us today to help us answer some of these questions. We also have Mark Sykes with us, who is the Vice Dean for Student Success. So between the two of them and myself, hopefully we're able to answer your questions, but if not, we will always point you in the right direction to get that question answered. So with that, I am going to kick us off with our first question. So if a student is sent to the Richmond dorm because they have COVID, who will be taking care of them, checking on their status, and are families allowed to come and pick up their student if they want to?
I think Mark and I can probably both weigh in on this one. As students are assigned to Richmond Hall, they will be assigned a case manager from both health services and perhaps the Dean of Students office as well. They will check in with them every day. The app that students are going to be getting information about soon also allows them to monitor their own health records on a daily basis, so they can take their temperature, put that into the app, and it will check their trends. We're working with our colleagues in conference services, and they are managing that facility with linens and checking on meals and making sure that those deliveries happen. So they're going to have a lot of contact. If they do have in-person classes, we will work with their faculty to make sure that they can complete their classes remotely during the time that they're in Richmond Hall. So I think they'll have a lot of good contact and be well taken care of.
Maggie, I think that's a great answer to a question I think are on the minds of a lot of families.
Mm-hmm.
I know that our office partners with Residence Life on just about everything. Your team is pretty amazing, and I have really learned so much over the years about how much you really care about students, and all of the staff that you have in Residence Life have just been amazing to work with over the years. So families, don't worry. We are going to check on them. I would say that if they're not texting you, they may be texting us. So no, we're not going to check on them at 7 o'clock in the morning, because we all know that our students don't get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They prefer to wait until they absolutely have to get up. So we will be checking on them. I don't know if it's going to be text or an email from the Dean of Students office, and we'll be working hand in hand with Residence Life to make sure that your student is well taken care of. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and can one of you address, are families allowed to come and get their student if their student is presenting symptoms?
Absolutely. At any point, families, we encourage you, if you'd prefer, if you have a student who is positive, especially if you think that they have an underlying health condition that you would prefer them to come home, absolutely. As you know, that we've worked with our faculty, our provosts, and our academic divisions to really make sure that flexibility has been built into every class possible, especially for first-year students coming in this fall. So even if they're not feeling good, they can't make it to class, a lot of those classes are going to be recorded. They can watch later, and we will definitely make sure the faculty members are aware of what's going on. I hope that makes sense as well.
It does, thank you. So our next question, living in Williamsburg, it can be a little warm at times. Will there be some places that students can get air conditioning that is not their residence hall room?
Yes, we are actually spending a lot of time identifying literally every nook and cranny across campus. that students might be able to use as a place to study, to log into class, and really figure out what they might need to do in order to be comfortable. So that the swim is still going to be open. Classrooms in between class use may have some opportunities for students to pop in and use those spaces, and we still have Sadler and Campus Center and a number, all of our public buildings across campus. So we are really working to find a lot of spaces that the students can carve out in order to make the semester as good as possible. Realizing that August and September may be quite hot. We want to make sure that we're addressing those issues and giving our students an environment that they can be successful.
And Maggie, we both know we've sent our children, our high school age kids off to summer camps, and we know that, for the first couple of days, we think, wow, it's going to be really hot. And then after a couple of days, their body acclimates. We're always recommending that you put a box fan in your window, and if you're living in a residence hall, and making sure that you have a fan that can blow on you. I think that air movement is so important, especially when it's a little warm. And then, after the first few weeks, it's actually pretty pleasant in Williamsburg for the rest of the year.
Thank you both. So if a student goes remote from home for the first semester, how will the student be placed in a residence hall for the second semester? Will they need to reapply, or will they be placed automatically?
We will be contacting all residents just to inquire about their plans, to confirm that they want to come back in January, and then we'll go through the same process that we did, whether they're a returning student, having them or a new student give us their preferences, and we'll do our best to meet those requests. We should have no issues at all with having space for everyone and making sure that they're in a place that's going to be comfortable for them. But we will reach out to everyone between November and December to really confirm those plans, realizing that everyone doesn't know right now what January is going to look like. So we'll take some time toward the end of the semester to sort that all out.
Wonderful. Can you tell us about activities that you have planned to help students connect and find new friends while maintaining COVID safety measures?
Maggie, let me take this one for you. I can tell you that all of the student organizations, all 490 something of them, have been working with student leadership development to ensure that they have a mechanism to reach new students and our continuing students. I really believe that whether you're on campus or you're remote or you're in Williamsburg taking classes, I think that we are going to do everything that we can to make sure that students have the opportunity to connect. Both a social fraternity or a social sorority, our honor systems, and a lot of our organizations are all thinking a little bit differently of how we can have meetings, how we can have gatherings, especially outside. We're going to be really encouraging students to spend a lot of time outside. I will tell you that one thing about Williamsburg, especially for your new families, it kind of rains sometimes in Williamsburg. And I remember, I have friends that have their own children that are freshmen that are just finishing their freshman year. And the first thing I say is, don't forget some wellies and a good raincoat. As long as you have those two things, it's really okay. And you know who usually listens? The women. Men usually just walk in the rain and look kind of normal and weird. During orientation, watching a whole group of women in all of their dressed up, matching umbrellas and boots and rain jackets, it's pretty funny. And then watching a group of guys just walking in the rain. So encourage your students, if they are men, to maybe think about a raincoat.
We have been working very closely with our colleagues in student leadership development, and they have a full range of activities that will be both in person and remote. The RAs have been busily planning all summer on how they're going to build their communities, and our orientation team as well has just a whole slate of activities that will, in new and different ways, help our students connect and really become a part of the tribe family. And for our new students especially, it's going to be their experience, and it'll work for them, and it'll be all they know, and we're going to make it as positive and community oriented as it can possibly be. They won't be bored.
Yes, I know there are so many people across campus working to really create that sense of community that brings students to William & Mary. So we appreciate all of those efforts. We saw on a calendar that move out is November 25th. Are students going to be required to empty their residence hall room when they leave for break at the end of the fall semester? Or what does that November 25th move out mean?
Well, as of now, that November 25th date, we're sort of looking at it as our normal closing date for the fall term. And right now, our plan is that students can leave the belongings that they want to leave, and then when they come back in January, they'll be there waiting for them. But given the unpredictable nature of COVID-19, and that's one of the reasons that we're asking people to pack light, is that, it is possible that by November 25th that we're seeing a huge spike in cases, and we may delay opening or make a decision. I'm not saying that that's a discussion or on the table, but just given what it has been like in our lives between March and now, we want students and families to be prepared for any scenario. So right now, they can leave their things. We hope they leave their things. We hope that that's the case that we're working with. But we also want students to know they have to remain flexible, because anything could change on a dime for us.
And Maggie, as you know, that we are meeting every day. I know that you're meeting with folks from around the state and housing officers from around the state, and our medical physicians and our COVID teams are meeting with folks from around the state to make the best possible decision that we can with the information that we have. And so the thing that I have really experienced, especially working with you, Maggie, is you've been a very honest and straight shooter. You tell it like it is, and you make sure that we're making decisions, especially for those students living in residence, that are really from a point of care first, safety. And I really hope that we don't have to make those decisions to evacuate or to change on a dime. But I'm sure our families are packing light. I noticed on your website it said pack for 2 or 3 weeks. And then we got a lot of questions from families that say, wait a minute, does that mean I'm only going to be allowed to stay for 2 to 3 weeks? And we were like, no. But I know there's a lot of people out there that want to only really wash once a semester and bring 90 pair of underwear. But we're sort of suggesting this time to sort of pack a little bit lighter. We can help teach your child how to do their laundry. And there are machines in every building, and we're going to make sure that hopefully things go pretty smoothly.
So I hope that everyone likes, or at the very least, tolerates their roommate. What advice do you give students if they truly don't get along with their roommate?
The first thing I would do is advise them to talk to their resident assistant and just, have a conversation and get a little bit of perspective on, is this normal? It's really difficult. If I could take a poll right now, I would imagine that most of the students and families on this call, that their students never shared a bedroom and may have never shared a bathroom. And so this is a massive transition for the majority of our students. So it's going to be hard to learn how to share a 12 by 12 space with another human being that they don't know. So, it'll be uncomfortable. There will be times when it's not great. And sometimes it just takes a few weeks to feel like, okay, this is my new normal. So I would ask them to talk to the RA, and the RA then can they have special training in talking through these kinds of conversations and mediation, and can let them know that, gosh, it sounds like there are some things we might need to follow up on, or just give it a few more days and come back and check with me and let me know if it's still uncomfortable. The bottom line is, we don't want any student to ever feel like that they're unwelcome in their own space, or uncomfortable and get for anything to get in the way of their primary purpose here, which is to study and focus on their academics. So we will manage a room change at request without any questions. We don't require that the students try to work it out. If someone tells us they want to move, we will do our best to move them. Space is often limited, especially in the beginning of the year in the fall. So it may take a little while. An immediate change is often not possible, but gosh, our goal is to make sure our students feel happy, comfortable, and safe in their space, and that they can study when they need to study. So that's what we're going to shoot for.
And you know, Maggie, I will tell you that my teenagers get along 100% of the time. They never argue. The bathroom is always perfectly clean. And you know, sometimes it is really important that we help our students through the difficulty. You know, in 25 years of being an administrator, I can tell you that sometimes students don't tell the whole truth to their parents about what's going on. Often they will call when they need mom or dad the most, when they're feeling vulnerable and I need some familiar person to talk to. And then often, once I get a good night's sleep the next day, the big problem with my roommate is not so big anymore. And so you've got staff all over the place to really help them through that. And I would encourage families out there to also advocate for your students and know that they may have to work some of these things through. I know that living with my wife after 24 years is not a joy every single moment, but I do love her and I love my family and I know that we're going to fight sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'm really glad that we're here. And I think that roommates experience the same things. And so I hope that our families will encourage them to really work through some of those difficulties. And then if we need to, and there's space, you've always been able to accommodate students if there's space to move them.
Okay, so on move-in day, once your scheduled hour is up to move in, this is a two-part question. The first part is, do students have the rest of the day to themselves, or will they be given a schedule of activities to follow for the rest of the day? And the second part is, do students stay on campus once they are all moved in, or should we take them back home with us?
Okay, first of all, I want to confirm and just let everybody know that the 1 hour for check-in is literally that we're going to have a contactless drive-through check-in process. So to get their keys, to get your students' keys, the family won't even get out of the car. And we have an hour scheduled just for that part, and then another hour scheduled to go unload and get everything put into the room. There are activities for our incoming students for the rest of the day. So for our new students, it might be a good time to say your goodbyes before their orientation events begin, because those are going to be starting in the afternoons. But for our returning students, there's probably a little bit of nobody's going to be holding a clock to kick you out, but at some point, we do want to make sure that we keep the density in those buildings at a low level, because our appointments are scheduled in such a way that we'll keep pinch points down with traffic in the hallways, traffic in elevators and stairwells, so that we're limiting contact. So we really are asking people to comply with that overall about a 2-hour window of getting keys, getting to the hall, and getting unloaded and unpacked. It's going to look a little bit different. For those of you that have done this before, you might not get to make the bed look beautiful or get all the posters on the walls or have everything look like it's ready for a Pottery Barn catalog shoot, but you can get close. It'll be close. So we just ask for your patience as we work through this sort of crazy time and try to keep everybody safe and healthy. And then the students should stay. They don't need to head out. We'd like them to stick around. We are going to have a full schedule of orientation events for them to do with their groups throughout the 3-day move-in process. So again, they're not going to be bored or sitting around with nothing to do. We're going to keep them busy, get them acclimated to campus straight away.
Wonderful. So we have, if you are joining us a little bit late, I'm going to go over, we've had some folks join us after we started. You can submit a question by using the Q&A feature here in Zoom. We will get through as many questions as we have time for. Right now I have 84 questions in the queue. So as you can imagine, there are going to be a few that we do not get to during our 2-hour time period. If that's the case, I highly encourage you email families@wm.edu. We will take those questions if we are not able to get to them during this call today. If we've already covered your question and you're wondering, do I really have to stick around for the whole 2 hours? No, you don't. Feel free to pop in and out as you are able to do so. This is also being recorded, so you'll be able to watch this afterwards, and we will go through and timestamp it so you can just find the question that you want and go straight there. Our next question is, are students really limited to only one 2x3 rug per room, or is this misinformation?
We just want their feet to hit those cold floors in the morning, but we have asked and recommended and suggest that students bring a small rug. And I'm going to tell you why. Our move out process this spring was really sort of a nightmare. And I know it was a nightmare for the families too, just in that they had to leave their things behind for so long and then had a short window to come and empty it. But we were inundated with the number of 8x10 or larger rugs that the students just left behind. And I understand why they left them behind, but we literally had to hire contractors to come and get those rugs, and then we have to store them. The Virginia law requires us to store anything that's left behind is considered abandoned property. So knowing that we have a very short semester ahead of us, and that we don't know if we may be in a situation where students may need to move out quickly, we're trying to think of things that will assist our students in a more efficient move-in and move-out process if needed. So we don't want to say no rugs, but we're just asking that students bring smaller rugs so that it's easier for them to roll them up, pop them into their vehicle and go. I will tell you, we're not going to go into every room and measure the rugs. So, you know, that I'm just sharing that information. We're not going to have rug police. We want our students to be comfortable, but we also overall needed to find a way to manage a process that really was unmanageable for us over the summer. And this will be something that is temporary, that it's not going to be long-lived, that it's just for a way for us to get through this fall.
Okay. If my roommate decides to commute, leaving me without a roommate, will William and Mary assign me a replacement? Will I have to move to a different residence hall? With no quads or triples, will I just be without a roommate this semester?
It depends. I don't know that there's a clear answer to all of those, but anyone who has a vacant space in their room, it is possible that we will assign another student to that space. And going back to the conversation that we had a few minutes ago about roommate conflicts and people who want to move. So we need spaces in order to accommodate room changes as students request them. We rarely will move a student for no good reason. So I mean, I can probably count on one hand in 30 years the number of times we've just randomly reassigned someone to a different space. It's very rare. So the short answer to that is no, we won't. We don't typically reassign anyone unless there's something, you know, a major maintenance issue wrong with the room, or we have to evacuate a hallway or something for a maintenance issue. So it would be really unusual for us to move a student unless we had a space situation that we needed to consolidate or a maintenance issue to address. But students should expect a roommate if they have a vacancy.
Okay, good information to have. I have a couple questions here in a row about bathrooms in residence halls. How will the bathrooms in residence halls be kept safe? And what will usage of the shower or bathrooms look any different this fall semester?
That's a great question, and one that, believe it or not, we've talked a lot about. And if you have a moment and you want to research a term called toilet plume, go ahead and Google that. And trust me, I've had a lot of conversations about these kinds of things over the last few months. In happy news, all of our shower stalls are private, and all of the walls in the shower stalls go up to the ceiling. So we don't have any issues with contact or overspray in our shower units. And we're comfortable at this point that we don't feel we need to schedule certain people for showers at a certain time. We're really comfortable with our self-determination model that we have in the halls with community development, and our students have been really good for 327 years about managing the use of shared spaces. The same with our toilet stalls. We have a handful of toilet stalls that we are extending the partitions up to the ceiling, but many of them are already partitioned to the ceiling. So we are retrofitting some toilet stalls, so we'll have the same privacy and no overspray from toilet plume as well between commode stalls. And then in areas where we have sinks, we're going to turn off the water from every other sink, so that so if there were more than one person in there at once, we'll be at least managing some physical distancing. We're also cleaning the bathrooms. The building services staff are coming in twice a day to clean bathrooms.
Great information to have. So there is talk that One Tribe Place is going to be used for quarantine of 6 students. If that's true, how will that affect the students who live there?
Good. Another good question. It's interesting to always know what rumors are out there, and that is an unsubstantiated rumor. Richmond Hall has been designated as our isolation hall, and if students test positive or are symptomatic and waiting test results, they're going to be assigned to the Richmond Hall space. But One Tribe Place is going to be a traditional residence hall as ever. And wait until you see it. It is looking pretty fantastic.
Oh, I love to hear that. So has there been any discussion about allowing students in non-air conditioned residence halls to have a window unit without a doctor's note? This is due to the dramatically increased time a student is expected to be spent in their residence hall this year. If the school cannot provide them a unit, can a student bring their own window unit?
Great question. And there's always a lot of discussion at William & Mary about air conditioning in residence halls. And the problem is that in the halls that are not air conditioned right now, the electric load in the building simply can't handle a window unit in every single window. So we really are relying upon our medical review committee to make those exceptions, and then we can monitor how many window units are in a particular building or on a particular circuit. So there is a little bit of a science to that. So everyone or a student being able to bring their own could be problematic for the power supply to the whole building. So we are sticking to students not being able to bring their own air conditioning unit. However, we're going to work with every student again to help them be as comfortable as possible. And if they feel they're just unable to manage it, they just come to our office and we will talk through the potential for room changes as air conditioned space is available.
That is always a hot topic as we approach move-in every year.
No pun intended.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Wow, look at that. Mark, this one is for you. So will students who fail to follow COVID safety requirements be subject to any disciplinary actions?
I think that we're really setting things up, Heather, for our community to be the amazing student and faculty community that we've always had. You know, I don't think that we're going to be able to do this without everybody participating in the solution that has been identified, especially by our COVID planning team and head Amy Sebring and Sam Jones. I think that when I'm on campus, I'm going to have to wear a mask in my office, whether I go down the hall or not. And I think that if we want to make sure that we can all stay safe, we're all going to have to follow those directions. I think that we are going to have a process that is going to help identify, and yes, there will be consequences for those violations. However, I want us to think positive about and assume the best in individuals. I will tell you, just the other day, I went to the car dealership to pick up my car after it being repaired, and I forgot my mask. And I was really embarrassed. And I thought, so okay, somebody's dropped me off. I can't go in here. I knocked on the door and somebody gave me a mask. And so the thing I do know is that there's going to be masks and supplies all over campus. And sometimes I know that my 17-year-old son never remembers anything ever. And we have to have masks all over the place for him in the car, on his keys, everywhere, so that he can go to the gym like he likes to every other day. But it's going to be a little bit of a change for us. And we are hoping that our community is going to come together and that we're going to assume the best of intentions. And we will work with students if we need to help them understand that it is a requirement if they want to be at William & Mary this semester, that they are going to have to follow the rules.
Thank you for taking that question for us. So will food trucks or other dining facilities allow for meal plan usage? So can a student take their dining card or their ID up to our tribe truck and use that? This is just based off of the assumption that there will be a limited amount of space inside of the dining halls for students to use.
I would say absolutely. We have been working regularly with our contractor, Sodexo, who provides our food service on campus, to ensure that we have not only space in our dining halls that meet standards for social distancing, but also I think that there's going to be an app that students will be able to know which dining halls are full, which ones are available. And I think the tribe trucks and things outside are going to be really popular this year. I think that students, especially when they're going to class, the most popular time to eat is between 12 and 1. And everybody, especially for the first couple of weeks, wants to eat between 12 and 1. And so I will encourage you to talk with your students and to find out when they usually like to eat between classes. There are going to be options for students to be able to order to go in the dining halls and some of our food trucks. And I think that the densification and what they're doing, especially in the dining halls and outside, are going to be pretty amazing. I have seen some of the stuff that they're working on, and so far I've been pretty impressed.
Wonderful. Should I be concerned if my incoming freshman student doesn't have a room assignment yet?
I would call the office or email living@wm.edu and ask that question. To my knowledge, we've assigned all incoming students unless it's a new admit. We still are getting some trickling in of new admitted students from waiting lists over the course of the last week or so. So those folks, it's possible we may not have completed an assignment, but if your student hasn't logged into the portal and checked their assignment, they should have an email with all the instructions on how to do that. They aren't going to get an email that directly says, hey, here's your assignment and your room number and your roommate. It's an email from William & Mary Residence Life that tells them click here and then log into the portal. So they have to take a couple steps to get that assignment, but it's possible that they may have missed that email. So have them go back, and it would be to their official William & Mary email address that that message would be mailed to, and have them check that out. And if not, just email us and we'll look into it and get it taken care of.
Wonderful. Do either of you have a sense of what Convocation will look like for the class of 2024?
A little bit. It's still in progress, and there will be, we're still making some final decisions about whether it's going to be a fully remote program and fully virtual, or if there will be some blended hybrid version of it. We're in conversation actually right now with the president's office about how that we can manage that and how we can make that look and pull that off. So we're hoping that in the next week or so, we'll have some final answers on that. And regardless, we're going to make it a memorable and important event. And eventually, one fine day, we're going to get back to those high fives going down the sunken garden. We'll get there one way or another. It might be a while, but for the time being, we're still finalizing some of those plans. But there will be some type of a convocation program in place, and we'll get that out soon.
Wonderful. Do either of you have a sense of what the music ensembles will look like during this fall semester?
Mark?
That's a very good question. I still think that there are going to be music ensembles. I think that there's still going to be a music program. And I think the faculty are thinking and figuring out different options, especially for performance. We know that from some of the data that we've received that playing an instrument or singing in a choir may project a possible positive case of coronavirus a little bit further. So I don't know exactly how they're going to work that out, but I have seen a lot of online performances of our music ensembles and our choirs from last semester and a couple of from this summer. And I know that they've been able to sort of figure that out remotely and actually have taped some of those performances. We play one of them, the alma mater, at our summer receptions that many of our music ensemble performance choirs were doing together. And it was pretty amazing. And the thing that I always like to remind families, if you're listening, is this is a short amount of time that we are going to have to worry about, hopefully, this virus. 4 years later, everybody's going to have a William and Mary degree, and we're going to be in a much better place. For a short amount of time, hopefully no more than one semester, we'll be at a place where we have to do things a little bit differently. But I think we're ready to help your student. Our faculty are ready for you to come back, and I'm ready for Williamsburg to have some more people in it.
Okay, can a student bring a microwave and fridge for their residence hall?
Yes, it is. Microwaves and refrigerators are permitted. If you check the Residence Life resource guide on the Residence Life website, there are some conditions and restrictions on size. A full-size home refrigerator is not recommended, but mini fridges are absolutely welcome. And I would remind everyone of the conversation that we had at the beginning, that move-in is going to be a quick process, and if we have to move out, that can also be onerous. So we really recommend using our rental company, because then you don't have to worry about it. Both a micro fridge, which is a connected unit, can be delivered to the student's room before move-in, so it'll be there ready and waiting. And then at closing, you just leave it, clean it out, leave it there, and then they come and pick it up. So it is quite convenient. But if you already have your own mini fridge and microwave, students are absolutely welcome to bring those.
So Maggie, is it one per room, or if my roommate brings a micro fridge and I bring one too, is that okay? Or should I be talking to my roommate and sort of seeing if we can sort of share one refrigerator?
You need to talk to roommates and work out sharing those items. Again, space in the room is limited, and 2 refrigerators and 2 microwaves is sometimes a bit overkill. My daughter was a freshman in Hunt Hall last year, and she and her roommate had really one of those tiny little cube refrigerators, and they said it was plenty for them. So I think that sometimes we think our students need a little bit more conveniences and space than they do. So let them talk through that, and they'll figure it out.
Thanks, Maggie.
Okay, so what happens if a student tests positive for COVID-19 on campus?
If a student tests positive, their first, hopefully they've already been to the Student Health Center, but it needs to be reported to the Student Health Center. And we will, if they're a residential student, we will work with conference services and get them assigned to a space in Richmond Hall. And then they will stay in that space until they are no longer symptomatic, and the health center and doctors and medical professionals deem them safe and that they're no longer shedding virus that is contagious. So that's how we'll manage it. And then it will, once they're back and healthy, then they can move back to their space and start life as it was before they received their positive test.
I see a couple questions in here about the spring semester. Do we have an idea yet what the timeline is for spring?
No, I think what we're doing is making the decision. We made the decision for the fall semester, and you'll notice it's 14 and a half weeks and not our traditional 16. We are still required to ensure that we have the same number of instructional hours in the semester that we have. And so I think that we're going to hold that decision until we sort of get back to campus and know how things are going to go. And then I think you're going to see the COVID teams and the calendar committee make decisions about the spring semester. As of today, everything is on the calendar for the spring as it is listed. But if there are changes, as you know, families, once it comes out, usually a few minutes later, I'm forwarding that to you for your knowledge. And so as soon as that information comes out, we will make sure that you have it.
Are masks going to be required in residence hall lounges and bathrooms? Is it only off outside of their individual room?
Masks are going to be required everywhere except in their bedrooms. Of course, so if they're walking down the hallway to go to the bathroom, they need to be wearing a mask. They can, of course, remove it to shower, brush their teeth, wash their face, and for washing purposes. But other than that, if they're studying in a lounge, if they're, in just hanging out with one or two friends in a socially distanced way, in a public area in the hall, they need to wear their masks. Masks need to be worn everywhere outside of their bedrooms.
Wonderful. Mark, what will the dining situation be like this fall?
I will say that I mentioned this a few minutes earlier, so welcome families for those that may not have heard my answer earlier about the dining halls. I think all the dining hall and food service is going to be open and ready for business. I think that we're going to try to use technology that allows students to check if a particular dining hall is full and they may need to go elsewhere. I think that we'll have lots of grab and go options, and folks that are working in the dining halls are going to be packaging food in like to-go containers a lot. We're trying to reduce the amount of you'll notice when you go in your grocery stores, there's no salad bars out, but they have salads that are prepackaged and that sort of thing. And we're going to be doing that as well. All of the menus will be on at dining.wm.edu. You'll be able to download the dining app. You'll be able to know who is in the dining hall as far as number of people there. You'll be able to order food to go and see all the menus. And so I think that I'm pretty excited about some of the really cool features that other schools in Virginia have been using for a while that William & Mary is going to be able to use, especially some of this new technology. So I think folks will be impressed with how the operations are moving forward and maintaining a restaurant standard quality of social distancing and meeting all of those sort of standards for their employees as well.
Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of questions. I've been scrolling to see if I can pick up some themes. I'm seeing a lot of questions about the logistics behind the move-in process. How long do I have to unload the car and help my students set up? How will I know what road to take on campus? Maggie, can you give an overview of what that move-in day is going to look like?
Sure, I will do my very best. Very soon, students will be emailed a pretty lengthy email with some links to the website that will allow them to look at what those routes are and what maps are available. And it'll also include a hang tag for their vehicle that they can print, and then, or actually it's a dashboard card that they can print that will have a very specific, it'll be a specific color code and give them directions on what to do next. So it's going to be very detailed, and it'll probably have more information than you even want. So don't worry about it. We're gonna get there with getting all that information out, and then there'll be lots of directional signs once you get to campus regarding what path to take to hit the the drive-through check-in process. And at that point, we'll be able to answer questions. That's where they get a key. That's where they're going to actually receive a PPE kit. So they'll be given a little package that includes 3 masks, some hand sanitizer, some wipes, which apparently are really hard to come by. So hold on to those. But they'll be given all the information they need with the next steps. We're hoping that moves along pretty quickly. And then students can, as soon as they get through that line, they can head to their building, and that card that they print will have their driving instructions for where they need to go. And again, there'll be both signage and people located throughout those routes. So if anybody gets turned around or has a question, we're going to get you pointed in the right direction. And then once you get to the residence hall, there'll be lots of signage and people there to help with where you unload and then where you go and park the car. The big thing is that we're asking the driver not to exit the vehicle, that they can just wait, get the items unloaded into the unloading area, and then go and park the car in the more permanent location so that we can move those vehicles through as quickly as possible. And then once we get into the halls, there's going to be, again, a lot more signage. We're really trying to limit numbers of people in the hall. So it's not going to be this, if you've done this before, either here at William and Mary or at other institutions, it's not going to look or feel or sound the same as it ever has before. We're not going to have lots of people there to, cheering and singing and welcoming you. It's going to be a real different experience. And we're also sadly not going to be able to have our Sweatin' For You team picking up your belongings and carrying them into the hall. I'm afraid that the helpers that your students are bringing are probably going to get a lot more of a workout than they may have in past years, just due to the fact that we want to limit contact between humans that aren't part of your family unit. So we apologize for that in advance. Normally, we like to provide that kind of service so that you're not as exhausted at the end of this time, but I'm afraid this move-in is going to mean maybe more steps and more carrying of your students' belongings. Another reason to pack light.
Maggie, I have to tell you, I just wanted to jump in and comment, for all the move-ins that you and I have worked together, our survey from parents and students overwhelmingly says that Residence Life does an incredible job of ensuring that the cars are coming in, the lines are good, even on the really busy days. And so, in the spring when I was volunteering, helping out with move out, even on campus, it was spaced really well. There was plenty of parking for folks. I felt like people were taking their time, and folks were only given 2 hours to move out in the spring. And I have to say, there was hardly anybody that needed more than 2 hours. I know that we're not going to be the time police and say, okay, mom and dad, you've been here 2 minutes past your time. But we're hoping that, again, I think 2 hours is going to be enough time for everybody to get their stuff in, as well as orientation starting shortly after that. And so make sure that you're spending time with your student before you arrive on campus. Say your goodbyes or see you laters when you are here with them. It's not going to be the time that you want, but I can tell you, after 20 years of working in orientation and first year experience programs, parents always tell us they never get enough time with their kids. So take the time on your way down while you're here in Williamsburg to do your shopping. Get it done before you get in the car line. And remember, pack 2 or 3 weeks of stuff at a time. They don't need everything under the sun, especially if you have to pack it back up.
And the students also tell us they're usually often ready to say goodbye before their parents are. So
yeah, my kids had said, mom and dad, you boomers, we love you, but we are ready to get back to our own life and do our things with our friends. And it's been great spending all of every day with you, 24 hours, 7 days a week for the past several months. And they're ready to be like, peace out, Cub Scout, and to get back to something.
Totally ready.
So I see a couple questions here. If a student is moved to Richmond Hall for self-isolation, will they need to move everything to Richmond Hall, or is it a temporary stay?
Great question. It is a temporary stay, and we actually would not want them to move all of their things because that just, they're already not feeling well. That could be an exhausting experience. So we want to really maintain their health and well-being as much as possible. So what we'll recommend, and we will have a little ideal packing list for them so that they don't forget things, but really just the essentials. They're going to need their clothes, their laptops, their chargers, medications, ID, just what they would need if they were going to go home for spring break, or so they don't need to move out completely, but they will need to remember the essentials because they won't be able to go back and forth to get them. If they need something, we'll have to make an arrangement to work with the roommate to get it picked up and then delivered by somebody on our conference services team. We'll do it, but it'll be easier if they can try to remember everything. But we'll make sure they have everything they need one way or another.
Wonderful. That was a really great question. So, what is the best way to ship belongings to a residence hall if an out-of-state family is moving their student in?
You know, every student has been given a campus station unit. And so in your housing assignment, if you log into the housing portal, eRes, you will see your CSU box. You can send that stuff in advance and you can pick it up once you get here. I will tell you that they are a little busy. Usually those first couple of days. We have a lot of families that will do sort of a ship to store, whether it's Home Depot or Target or Bed Bath & Beyond, and actually send them to the store. We had a lot of families last year that all they had to do is go by and pick up their bag of wherever they were getting their stuff. And I will tell you that if they don't have everything, you can go to the store for them. You can make sure that they can get it back. But we are sort of recommending that we limit as much contact once you leave campus as humanly possible so that we can actually make sure everybody gets here safely and on time.
And if you hit the Residence Life website, there are a couple of companies that we work directly with. So check out the Residence Life website if you're shipping items to campus.
Thank you both. And just a reminder for families who may have joined us late, we are doing questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom. This just helps me keep track of which questions we've answered and which ones I'm able to actually type a direct response to you. So if you're typing questions in the chat, that's okay, but you might want to go ahead and move those over to the Q&A function. I'll be better able to moderate those questions in the long run. And please do continue submitting those questions. We do still have over 100 open questions. So just another reminder that if we do not get to your question, you can send an email to families@wm.edu and we will gladly answer that question early next week when we are back in the office.
Yeah, and Heather, I will tell you, folks can email me too. I put my email address up there. I wanted to make sure that families also know that yesterday I received about 300 email messages, and it does take a little bit of time to get back through those. So keep in mind, sending an email is not an instant message. It doesn't come through where we're just sitting and waiting for 5 minutes to sort of respond. We are responding. I have seen Residence Life responding all day. I have seen families responding all day, but we do sort of do them in order that they come in. So please allow us a good day or so to be able to get to those emails and respond to them. We probably won't be able to do that, especially right now with an instant message coming back to you. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you for clarifying for us, Mark. So what are the additional measures being taken this fall to clean residence hall spaces and common areas within the residence halls?
I'll start off on that. We're working very closely with our building services staff and environmental health and safety director to really come up with protocols that are going to make sense. So we're using new and different products that we haven't used in the past. Over the summer, we are doing a complete sanitation through literally a fog machine that is really just spreading that product all over every single surface, and within about 30 to 60 minutes, we can, with great confidence, say that our spaces are clean and sanitized, so they're going to be ready for our students when they move in. Our building services staff is cleaning high-touch surfaces throughout the day, door handles, countertops, all the places that our the swipe card readers are going to get a good cleaning with regularity. Common bathrooms are going to be cleaned professionally twice a day. And we're also going to make sure that there are products available for the residents to clean for themselves if they wish. So if they head into a lounge to study and they sit down at the table, there's going to be either spray and paper towels or cleaning wipes that they can wipe down those surfaces and feel comfortable sitting down at a table and using the space. So we are going to recommend that our students do that. And actually in a survey that we completed with them earlier this spring, they told us they're absolutely very willing to do that, and we're comfortable that they'll be very compliant with making sure that those spaces are safe for their use. And I think those same practices are happening campus-wide. Classrooms are going to be cleaned with regularity. Certainly, the comings and goings in the dining services for both grab and go and outdoor seating going to be cleaned with regularity and great cooperation with our environmental health and safety team.
And Maggie, I would tell you that my 17-year-old and 14-year-old share a bathroom, and one is gross and the other one is actually pretty clean. And so I would also encourage families to keep in mind, we're not going to be coming in the residence hall rooms and cleaning. That will be the responsibility of the residents once they take possession of those spaces. And we know that sometimes people leave their toothpaste out, and sometimes people are a little bit more messy in the bathroom. So also encourage your students, as they are using the facilities in the residence halls and buildings, that they're not leaving a mess. We want to make sure that we have the staff an appropriate time to clean twice a day, but know that sometimes 18-year-olds can be a little messy, and that we will do everything we can to ensure cleanliness and safety standards, but we're going to need your help to encourage your students to also make sure to clean up behind them. I'm really hoping that by the time my daughter is 30, she'll actually take her plate to the kitchen and put it in the dishwasher by herself without nudging.
I will pop a quick reminder that for students that have a private bathroom, and when we say private bathroom, we mean a bathroom that's behind a locked door. So they may share it as a suite or a Jack and Jill kind of bathroom with other roommates. So it's the responsibility of those roommates to keep that space clean. Those are not public area bathrooms and not shared widely. And if it's behind a locked door, they're going to need to clean that. So, and that's been common practice in those types of bathroom units for forever. So please make sure you send them with plenty of Clorox wipes and cleaning products of your choice that make them comfortable with how they would want to clean that space.
Wonderful. So Mark, can families visit their students on the weekend, given that Family Weekend has moved to be a virtual format?
I will say that what we are doing is we are really encouraging students to stay as close to campus and in Williamsburg as they can. And we are encouraging families not to come every weekend and to visit them. But at the end of the day, I think it has to be a decision that you talk about with your student. We're not going to be doing bed checks. We're not going to be having them check in and out if they go into the Williamsburg area. They are free to go where they want. If you are going to come and see them on the weekend or meet at a restaurant or check in on them, we obviously strongly encourage you to also wear masks. You'll be required to if you become on our campus, and we encourage you to sort of limit those trips as much as you can. But again, at the end of the day, if my son needed me and I needed to go down and see him if he was in school, I would go, but I would respect everything that I could to ensure the safety of the rest of the students on campus.
Thank you. So, do we have a sense of how many students are going to be moving onto campus this fall semester versus choosing to attend remotely?
That's, I think Mark and I are probably both going to need to weigh in on this one. It
Sure.
is a moving target and changing every hour as families and students are making their individual decisions about their comfort level and the schedules that they're creating um, through the registrar. So we have space for almost 5,000 students. And as of today, we have about 4,600 that are contracted and right now telling us they plan to join us on campus. We also understand that the registration deadlines are still looming and students are making decisions. So we anticipate that that number will continue to drop as students make decisions to study, to stay home and complete their studies remotely. And Mark, if you have any other
Sure.
information to
You
add
know,
to that.
the thing I will say then, the data that I've looked at, most of our families and the majority of our students have indicated they're coming back to Williamsburg. Our residence halls are still nearly full. Our classes are still full. We have plenty of room in some of those classes. The good thing is, Maggie, this year you may have a little bit more flexibility to move people around if we need to do that. And so that is usually not an option that we have. Usually you're nearly 100% all year long. I know that families and students are given a little bit of extra time, especially with registration and when their bill is due, if you haven't already paid the fall tuition. I know that at the end of the day, it has to be a family decision. My son and I were talking about this last week, and he said, Dad, again, being able to sleep until noon, wake up in my pajamas, go to class once a week, if it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, and the other 2 days I can go sit in the sunken gardens and take class, or I can sit in my residence hall and open my computer and do it. I think the thing is that we've built maximum flexibility into it. And so some of our families are like, I'm not getting on an airplane and I'm not comfortable sending my child. That's okay. And if that's the decision that your family makes, we will respect that. At the same time, I think, looking at the data, again, I'm not a physician and I can only look at the data that I can see on the CDC's website. And hearing that the majority of our young population do not necessarily get the majority of the very severe symptoms. Even some families that I know personally that are connected to William and Mary have been tested positive this summer. And the majority of them didn't have underlying conditions and severe reactions to the virus. So I'm really hoping that the data stays true and that most of our students will be either asymptomatic or mild symptoms if they do test positive for the coronavirus. And I hope that they still remember to wear their masks to keep us old people safe. So yes, I'm over 50 like most of you.
Does each hall have an RA, and do the RAs attempt to bring the hall together at the beginning of the semester?
There are RAs in every building, and given the great variety of architecture that we have on campus, it's hard to say that I can't say there will be one on each hallway or floor, but things are broken up as the architecture delineates for us. So every student will have an RA assigned to them. And their job is to help students feel at home, to feel safe, and to get to know other people in their community and to really build a strong neighborhood. And they go through a pretty rigorous selection process and a very specific and intentional training program that really gives them the skills to get to know your students and to help your students get to know one another. They know what they're doing. They are bleed green and gold to their core, and are often so excited to be here and so excited to be a part of your students' lives that they're probably going to be the first person they meet, and one of the names that they're going to remember their whole lives is who their RA is. So we really look forward to building these relationships with your students, and we are very confident they're going to be memorable for a lifetime. So please make sure your student gets to know that RA right away.
Yeah,
I have
you've got a great staff, Maggie. I'm telling you what, your RAs are some of the best that I've seen. I know some of them personally. You've got some good people working.
Good job.
I have a follow-up question. A family member has asked, will families have the contact information of a student's RA if they would like to address problems with that RA directly?
That's a good question. It's not information that we publish or provide, because as students, our students are also protected. Their directory information is protected, so it would be up to that individual RA as to whether they're sharing their contact information or not. However, we really recommend that if a family member feels they need to intervene or ask a question, they can reach us at the Residence Life email address, which is living@wm.edu, and we'll be happy to contact an RA and make a connection, or work with any issue or answer any questions that families might have. But we're not at liberty to share that contact information widely with families.
And Maggie, you've got a huge professional staff too that regularly connect with families. You can send an email to families at WM. You can fill out a care report that is on our website. If you have a concern, we always say, usually you get the call when I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I've had enough, it's hot, I got a B on my test today, and life is over. And so again, I think parents, take a deep breath. Be there and advocate. I often tell families, reserve the knee-jerk reaction to what's happening. You know your child better than any of us. You know in the back of the head their triggers, what things are going to stress them, and when they really need additional help. All of us are here to ensure that your child is successful, and that's kind of what we do. The RAs are really integral to make sure that that happens. And I often, when I need an RA, I will contact somebody in Residence Life, or fill out a report, or contact a professional staff member, and they say, I'm on it, Mark. We'll have an RA check on that. But again, I wanted to remind you, a lot of families will call and say, don't tell my son or daughter that I've called. I promise you, if there was a night before drama that you were dealing with, and then all of a sudden the next day an RA or an area director or a professional staff member checks in on your student, they kind of know that you basically called us. That's okay. We will be here, we will listen, we will work with you. But I always like to tell families, let them know that they may be calling the next day, or I will sort of communicate that to you when we're talking. I hope that makes sense.
Wonderful. Are students going to be allowed to use communal spaces like kitchens, for example? My student really loves to bake and is going to miss having a kitchen that they can use.
Yes, we are going to limit some of those spaces in terms of, we are not going to provide baking equipment, pots and pans and utensils. Like normally there are some of those products available and items available to check out from the duty office, or just stored in those areas. But again, due to just trying to limit contact with that the wider public might have with those items, we are not providing them. So if somebody wants to bake, if they brought their own equipment and kept it in their room and took care of it privately, they would have access to the stove to do that, and ovens in halls where those are available. Most halls do have a kitchen facility on either every floor, or some, or at least one per hall. So those will be available, but again, they'll need to bring their own equipment to do that. We are limiting, typically in the duty office, the students could check out a vacuum because they want to vacuum their rooms all the time and keep them spit spot tidy clean. But sorry, we're not going to be able to give them a vacuum this year. and games and sports equipment. There's all kinds of things that in a normal year we're encouraging our students to use all the time. So if you have a returning student, they'll need to know that they can't rely upon the duty office to grab a football or a badminton set or the cornhole boards, those kinds of things. We're just, until things get better health-wise, we're going to put a hold on sharing those types of equipment.
You know, I think we understand, Maggie. I think that you've been in almost every meeting I've been in this summer, whether it's at night or in the morning. And so I know that you are the associate VP that tries to find a way to say yes. And I know that if you're having to restrict items from certain areas, that's not what you want to do, but we've been encouraged by the Virginia Department of Health and that we're following guidelines so that we can ensure that our students are safe. And I can't wait until we can get back to providing all of those wonderful frisbees and footballs and everything else, to, especially cornhole, to students, hopefully in the spring.
Okay, so I have a question about, so we've covered what happens when a student presents with symptoms and they go to Richmond Hall. What happens to the student's roommate?
You want me to handle that one, Mark? I've had lots of conversations with Dr. Dafshu about this, and we are considering a roommate relationship as a family unit. So at this point, the roommate would self-quarantine, which is different from isolation, in their room. So they would make sure that they're monitoring their temperature and their symptoms, probably maybe with a little bit more frequency than if they weren't exposed to someone. And the app that the students are going to have will allow them to enter all of that data. So that they can have a tracking method for how that's going for them. So we really will want them, if you haven't bought a thermometer yet, please send your student to campus with a thermometer, and then they'll be able to enter all that data into the app, and will be very helpful. And then we'll want them to be even more vigilant than they're already being about wearing their mask and distancing, washing their hands, and just really sort of keeping to themselves as much as possible. They can still go to their class, they can still go to pick up their food at the dining hall, but we'll just want them to be extra careful and then just extra aware of how they're feeling and what's going on with themselves. And then the minute they think they might feel a little off, they can head to the health center and they'll talk with one of the doctors or nurses there about a test and if they need to get further assistance. But at this point, the quarantine, which is just exposure, we're going to keep them in the room and ask them to be super careful. Just as we would with our families, if somebody in your home has been exposed, we would all sort of participate in these types of behaviors.
I've had a question about what happens if there is a hurricane near campus.
Well, it is 2020. So
we're going to have 6.
I can tell you that 2 years ago, 3 days after orientation, we did have to put in our emergency evacuation plan for a weather emergency. And especially for our out-of-state families, I can tell you that we have asked for volunteers and folks to identify if they were able to take somebody with them in case we had to evacuate for a hurricane. And I was really surprised 2 years ago when the entire campus in less than 4 or 5 hours was completely evacuated. And I know it sounds daunting, out-of-state families, but I'm telling you, we've done this not so many times, but we've done it enough to know that we have a very organized way in which we do evacuate campus. Students are going to be getting something from me on Monday, I think, that is going to ask them to update their emergency evacuation plan. We are putting together a short-term evacuation and a more long-term evacuation. And for the first time, we're going to be able to run reports off of that data. The whole point, though, is for the evacuation plans is for them to really talk with you about if there is a weather emergency, what's that plan going to be? And it could be, I'm going to stay in the Williamsburg area off campus. It could be, I'm going to go home with my roommate that lives in Richmond. It can be lots of different things. It just means that we really just can't support them on campus in the residence halls during that weather emergency. We tried it several years ago and didn't do so well. And so ever since 2003, we've decided that it's much better to send them off campus than it is to keep them on and shelter in place. So I hope that answers your question about our weather emergency. Maggie's first year here, she's had trees down, we had a hurricane, there was a fire, and she's like, what is going on at William and Mary? And I was like, I promise it's not like this every year.
And it hasn't stopped.
So now we have COVID, and I think that we're going to figure it out. So let's pray that we don't have a hurricane, but we'll be ready if we do.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about air conditioning in the residence halls. Are students allowed to bring air purifiers or fans for their room?
Yes, please. We recommend both. There are a couple, it depends upon the window setup for the room, but I really like those little fans that they're dual. So there's one blowing in and one blowing out. So it's constantly moving fresh air in and out of the room. If the window can accommodate that, those are great. The students, probably their preference is a pedestal fan because they can move it around, and the heights, if they've raised their beds a bit, the height of a pedestal fan is useful for them. And air purifiers are fantastic. In fact, our director of environmental health and safety she loves an air purifier. So please feel free to bring one. They work great in any setting, and we really do recommend that they bring them. So please do.
So following up on that, if we want to know anything about the specifics of our assigned room, like, what is the window size, dimensions, where should we go to find that information?
The Residence Life website has very specific information on every single residence hall, down to the size and depth of closets and the floor size and how tall the desks are, how deep, wide, and for every piece of furniture. So please hit up the Residence Life website. There's even a video tour of every single hall. They're all empty, and they're not a beautiful tour, but it at least give you an idea of the reality of what check-in day, what that room is going to look like when you arrive with your belongings. So really recommend that you hit that up and take a peek at what those spaces are going to look like, and all those dimensions for everything in the room are listed on the website.
I just saw Heather post the Residence Life link, families, and so if you're looking in the chat, I just noticed it popped up. Heather, you're so amazing. Thank you for posting that information. And families, for some of you are posting your children's pictures from your freshman year or sophomore year living in the residence halls on our Facebook group. There has been a lot. You can always go on Facebook group and search that information and find pictures that have been posted. So it seems like every single residence hall, somebody's posted a picture about it. So use that. The Residence Life website has lots and lots of information there, and opportunities for resources for you to read about things that are happening in residence life.
Okay. Since we won't have helpers this year, can I bring an additional helper with me? So it would be 3 instead of 2.
We are going to be very strict on 2 helpers entering the residence hall. If you choose to bring other family members and they don't come in, that really is up to you, but we are going to be very strict about only 2 helpers per resident, again, because we're really monitoring the numbers of people that are in every hall and the traffic that's flowing in and out of the building. So I know that that's disappointing, and we'd love to have it really be the family affair that it typically has been, but we just ask for your patience that we're really making these decisions that will help us keep our community as safe and healthy as possible.
And
So
half the time, Maggie, families that bring more than two helpers are usually the argumentative teenager that doesn't really want to help move in anything anyway. And so I have found that it's almost too much when families have three each. The rooms are not great size, and the hallways are packed with stuff. And so I think having two helpers is probably the right amount of people to get your stuff in. And again, pack a little lighter this fall.
Once my student is checked in and moved in, is there going to be time for us to go to dinner together?
You know what? The answer is once you drop them off, orientation's pretty much getting started right after that. I encourage you again that if your move-in appointment is in the afternoon, get up in that morning, come to breakfast, spend a little time in Williamsburg together, eat together, say your good goodbyes. But once you drop them off, we're going to sort of ask you that they really need to begin orientation and acclimating to William and Mary, as well as we want to keep our social distancing standards to make sure that we can keep our community safe. So there's probably not going to be the time after you drop your child off to be taking them out to dinner and taking them off campus. Does that make sense? I
It
say
does.
that makes sense a lot.
You're just checking to make sure that we're still with you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thanks, Heather. Hope I'm not boring you guys out there, families. Maggie is awesome, and I'm usually the one that talks too much.
So I am going to give another reminder really quick, just in case there are some new families on the call and there are still about 200 of you with us. We still have 82 questions in the queue. So I'm moving as fast as I possibly can, but time is limited. We're approaching our last half hour. So if you have questions that do not get asked and answered during this, I highly encourage you to send an email to families@wm.edu so we can address that question. We have a limited amount of time with our experts here today, but we are going to be answering those questions once we're back in the office next week. You can expect maybe a 1 or 2 day delay depending on how many questions we receive after this event this evening. But please do keep in mind that if we don't get to your question, it's not because I just didn't like your question. There are just so many that we're trying to get through. So thank you for being patient with us as we attempt to answer these questions. So one question that I'm seeing frequently is there's a little bit of confusion of, so if my student moves in on that first day of move-in, are orientation activities starting that evening? Or so if my student moves in on Friday, are they already missing some of that orientation?
No, there's going to be a lot of connection with the RAs, with the OAs and things prior to the official start of new student orientation on that Friday. I know that Lauren and her team, as well as RAs and Maggie's team, have spent a lot of time talking about how they can develop and create those family communities and those family atmospheres inside the buildings for the couple of nights that they're going to be here before everybody arrives. And so, there is the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th of August that students can choose to move in. I think by now everyone has gotten onto the Residence Life portal and actually chosen their move-in time. So again, doing it by social distancing and a few at a time, there will be lots of things for them to do. It won't be exactly like orientation with everybody until Friday afternoon, but we will be here and there will be things for them to do.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, my son's roommate is moving in a day before my son. How will the staggered move-ins be handled? Will his roommate be in the room or will he be busy outside of his room when we're moving our student in?
my guess is he'll probably be busy outside the room. And even though the full orientation groups won't arrive at the same time, they're going to be working as their cohorts arrive to do some things. So that he'll probably be busy. I'm not saying that that they won't be there, but we are going to be also advising folks to sort of give people their space and leave the room so that they can get settled. So we're going to be giving them a little bit of advice on what some of that that etiquette might be for when your roommate arrives. Okay, to say hi and meet them, and then maybe give them some space and take a little walk if you don't have something scheduled.
Okay. Is there a size limit restriction on the fridges and microwaves within the residence halls?
There is, and if you head to the Residence Life website and check out the Residence Life resource guide, all of those specifications are there. I want to say off the top of my head, it's 4.1 cubic feet for a refrigerator, and just one of the smaller size, you don't need to bring a big house-sized microwave, will work.
Wonderful. Okay. Please forgive me. I'm sorting through our questions, ones that we may have already answered and ones that we have not answered already.
You take your time, Heather. I've noticed that Maggie hasn't had any water to drink at any time, and I just sent her a text and asked her if she was a camel because my throat is dry because we're talking so much. So please take your time.
So what is the deadline for deciding whether students want to attend in person this fall?
One more time, Heather.
What is the deadline for deciding whether a student wants to attend in person this fall?
I want to say it's the time that you can make that decision up until you get here. And even if you get here and decide once you get here that that's not going to work and you need to go to that remote option, again, I think that everything has been built on the core value of flexibility and what works best for you and your family. And so I think that even if you got here, you could still make the decision to take them back home. Again, we hope that everyone is coming and that everyone is going to be able to stay. Things will look a little bit different, but I think that it's still an experience that we're all doing together, even if it's a little bit different of an experience.
How do students pay for the laundry machines? Do they need coins or will there be a student card that they can use?
It's yes to both of those. Our laundry machines accept quarters, and they can also use, if they have cash on their card, they can also use their swipe to do that. So a lot of students like the swipes because mom and dad pay that bill, but some students like to come with a boatload of quarters, like was my life when I was in college. So either way it works. Interestingly enough, about 15% of our students do choose the coin option. But
wow, I would have assumed it would be all cashless.
No, it's we talked about that. In fact, our laundry contract was just up for renewal this past year, and we're going to have some new machines in around campus. So your returning students will notice some nice new machines. But it's surprising how many students still opt for the coin operation.
Huh.
But we do have laundry machines on campus, just despite what your students might say. If they come home with all of their laundry for a month and a half, we do have functioning laundry machines on campus.
And there are a couple of businesses in town that charge by the pound and will come and pick up and return your laundry clean to you. I know that that is something that families ask a lot. Do encourage your students to use the brand new facilities that we have in the residence halls. I'm happy to hear that we have a new vendor with some new washing machines. And families, you can fill up their easily online. You can add money to their student ID. It's a little bit better trackable. And then my son always wants my personal credit card and then wonders why I won't issue it to him every day he wants it. So just know that we are a pretty cashless campus, and if carrying cash is not something that you want to do, there are plenty of options. For most places on campus do take the card swipe, and you can add money to that account 24 hours a day.
I will add that I saw a couple questions in the Q&A about the type of laundry detergent. The laundry machines will take liquid, they will take powder, they will take pods. We just ask that you do purchase the high efficiency type of laundry detergent because our machines are very sophisticated and they prefer the HE model. So please, high efficiency, but the type, whatever you or your student prefer.
Wonderful. If a student has applied for an all-remote exemption, should the student also book a move-in slot just in case?
That is really up to the student and what their plans are. Students may choose to reside on campus even if they are selecting an all remote schedule of courses. They would need to make sure that they stay identified as a residential student because that impacts aid packages. So they need to make sure that they're not, that they haven't changed their status as a resident student. But if they're planning to live on campus, they should book a move-in slot. If they're still making their decision, it would not hurt to book the move-in slot. And if they're going to make that decision after the fact, it is important to know that once students move in, it's a different, there's a refund schedule that we're following, and that's all located in the terms and conditions of the housing contract. But at this point, we are releasing everyone from their contract prior to move-in with no penalty at all. So it's financially probably best to make that decision before move-in if possible. But we also realize that people are going to be juggling a lot and making this decision, and there's a lot that goes into it. So please continue to send questions to us, call our offices during the day, email questions to us, and we'll talk you through those decisions individually as best we can, because it is really a personal and individual decision that everyone's facing right now. So include us as needed as you're navigating these really important high-level decisions.
You know, Maggie, the only thing that I would add is that keep in mind that if you did fill out the FAFSA and you are getting some sort of cost of attendance and aid, if you choose to change that and you've already been awarded the financial aid package, that may change your cost of attendance, which means it may change your aid package. If that is the case for you families, you know, we'd encourage you to contact aid@wm.edu. That's the email address for the financial aid office, or talk to the counselor or email the counselor that you've been working with. Make sure you are informed about what the ramifications are of indicating upfront that you were coming with residence charges versus you've changed that mind. Just don't want you to have any surprises out there just in case.
Heather's contemplating.
I am, but I had my thinking face on just now.
Okay, good. This will be a good time for us to get some water. You go, Maggie.
Did it.
I got this for my birthday, so I'm pretty happy that it keeps it cold all day long. I was not a fan. I'm like, why does my daughter need a $50 water bottle? And okay, I kind of get it now because it keeps everything cold for a long time.
So will students be able to walk around the town of Williamsburg and go out to dinner, go to grocery stores, or is this going to be discouraged?
Absolutely not. We want our as much of a normal, healthy life as that we can encourage. We want them to go out to eat. I will tell you that the restaurants in Colonial Williamsburg have put up all of this outdoor seating and tents. There is a lot of places that didn't have any outdoor seating before that it is available. My wife and I went out today. We ate at a taco place, and they had the tables. They had every other one with a sign on them saying, like, you know, don't do this, as well as they had like some squares saying, you know, stand here before your order. And so it was only like the second time we've eaten out inside a restaurant. And I have to tell you, I felt very comfortable. I felt like the staff was respecting each other. They were doing social distancing. They had their masks on. And it was actually not bad at all. So absolutely, we encourage your student to eat off campus, do what they would normally do, just keep your mask on. We are going to discourage from big parties and all of the things that I know that some of you really want to experience. But I think my only big concern as a dean, as soon as you introduce alcohol into any equation, because you know, none of our students under 21 ever drink at all or ever break a rule. Keep in mind that that's when I start to get a little bit worried, because the first thing I think is going to happen is those masks are going to come off because your inhibitions are down. And so while students will make decisions for what they think is best for them, encourage them to get off campus, explore. There's a lot that Williamsburg has to offer.
Wonderful. So for students who have chosen to be fully remote this first semester, are they still allowed to participate in orientation activities? How are they being brought into the William and Mary community, even though they're not on campus?
We've been working really hard with Lauren Garrett's team to create a fully remote orientation process, because we really do want to make sure that our students who have made the decision to not come to campus can still make that connection and really feel a part of our tribe. So they're going to be pulled into a cohort. Those cohorts will be a blending of both people that are on campus and people that are off campus. So they'll be able to make some connections, get to know some people, whether it's remotely. They're not going to be completely left to their own devices. We're going to stay connected with them as much as we can through the full semester. And that's not just with orientation. We're going to be working with student leadership development, with many of the student groups, and our Center for Student Diversity. We're going to just really pull into as much remote work as we can, because even on campus, we're not going to be able to bring people together. So it should be just as easy for our students that are on campus and our students who are in Missouri to connect with us and really make the best of what we need to do. So we're going to try our best to keep everybody connected, and we really need our students who are studying remotely to make a commitment to log into these sessions and to really look at what those opportunities are. There's going to be probably more than they could ever even imagine, spaces to get together and find ways to connect. So they're going to need to look for those opportunities, and we're going to make sure they know about them.
And you know what, Maggie, most of orientation is required anyway, whether you're remote, whether you're in person. And so we will be knowing who's not there and following up with those students. Most of orientation is required. Our community does believe in our orientation program and wants to make sure that your student has information prior to the start of school. Some of it legal, some of it value, some of it things that we think that you should know. And so keep in mind that we encourage it. We do expect our remote students to be connected with the new student orientation program, and we will be here to help you. Lauren's team, fye@wm.edu, will be ready to answer questions and to help for those students that are remote. I know, Maggie, you have had many conversations with Lauren this summer to ensure that there is consistency as well as opportunities for both our on-campus students and our remote students.
We're going to make it work.
That's the name of the game this fall.
It is.
So if there are so we're moving in. We have 2 cars. Only 1 car is allowed for each student. Can we just take turns with the 2 different cars? How do we make that work?
Oh gosh, we're really hoping that people can come with 1 vehicle, but we would ask that only 1 vehicle comes through the actual the space where we're doing check-in, which Perfect. Is where you get your PPE and where you get your keys, and where we're taking that first step of you've checked in, we get your ID and we get you checked into our iPad process. So we would probably want our folks to head to their straight to their residence hall if they absolutely must have 2 vehicles. It might be best to let us know that in advance so we can work with that. And we're going to have people coming in through Compton, through off the Monticello Road area, and then we'll be in the Kaplan-ish area for our check-in process. So, but we'll try to get people moved in as quickly as possible, but it might be best if you must have 2 that you check with us in advance, and we'll give you some direct plans on what the best way to manage that process is. But if at all possible, one vehicle will be much easier for everyone involved.
And I know that there are some blended families out there, and you're sort of taking different transportation modes to get here. And so if two cars come to the Williamsburg area, that's fine. I think if you have two cars full of stuff, you are bringing too
Too
much stuff.
much.
So look at, if you're having two cars, leave one off campus. Bring that car full of stuff. And I think that that will kind of answer the question is, do you have much stuff or not? I can tell you that most families usually only bring one car of stuff. I see there shouldn't be any trailers or U-Hauls coming. That would scare me just a little bit, especially for a freshman move-in. But try to keep it to one car if you can.
Wonderful. Now, I have seen 4 or 5 questions along this same vein. So this is a hot topic this afternoon. Are there trash cans in the residence hall rooms, or should we bring our own?
They should bring a small trash can for their bedroom. We are going to be we're increasing the numbers of trash cans across campus, both in residence halls and everywhere around campus, because students are going to be grabbing and going. There's going to be that takeaway process. So there's going to be a lot of bags and the program, the little, whatever those, what are those things that people put their food in, the takeaway things. Those food, those processes.
The takeaway things.
Takeaways, those meals are going to be very different. So they're going to have their salads and their things all over campus. And so we're prepared for that. There's going to be trash cans everywhere, which is not usually what we like to see around campus. We like campus to look beautiful and not be full of trash cans. But under these circumstances, we know that students are going to need a place to put their takeaway and carry out items. So there will be a lot of places around campus for them to do that, but a small trash can for their daily trash will be important for them to have. Doesn't have to be anything big. And they can pack in it.
I know, that's a really helpful tip, is that you pack inside the trash can. Any open hollow space, you just stuff in there. So should students bring their own toilet paper?
We're going to have you covered on the toilet paper. I can't promise that it will be as lovely as the toilet paper that you might have at home, but we do provide toilet paper for all of the residence halls. So we'll take care of that.
And not to throw them in the trees on campus, to use them appropriately.
Yeah, they usually do pretty well with that, but it might not be as soft and cushy as they're used to having at home.
Institutional issue.
So are freshman students allowed to bring a bike or a scooter to campus?
Absolutely. You can register your bike before you bring it. There is a bike sale that we have a lot of students who leave bikes at the end of the year. They can't fit it back in the car, or they purchased it after they got to campus. And for $25, you can get a used bike through parking services over at William & Mary Police a couple of weeks into campus. So that's definitely an option. I would say don't spend your money on getting a very expensive bike. Campus is not that large. You can traverse campus from one side to the other in 10 to 12 minutes in a brisk walk, or if you walk like my 14-year-old, a half hour. But it is not, you don't need a bike to get around, but I do think a lot of our off-campus residents that live in the community bike in, and you see them usually with their ear pods on, AirPods, not paying attention to what they're doing. So keep in mind, observe the rules for bicycles. And yes, absolutely, bring your bike if you want.
We do ask that they register their bicycle with William & Mary Police. It's really an important thing, because my daughter's bicycle did get stolen and she had not registered it. And luckily it was a cheapie for just that reason. So those things do happen. So I would not bring a super expensive one, and make sure you register it with the police, because then they can try to help find it later.
Does every student need to bring a printer, or are printers readily available in common areas for students?
My daughter would say don't bring a printer, but other people absolutely feel like they can't live without a printer. This is one of those things that every student sort of has to figure out what they're comfortable with. There are plenty of printers available in SWIM and in
Classrooms, buildings, they're all over the
classrooms.
place.
Yeah, they're all over. So my daughter just didn't want to take up space in their room with a printer, but some people feel like they need one. So it's really a personal choice. They can make room for it if they have it, but they'll be fine without one.
You know, I've been surprised. I'm the old school, like to print stuff, edit it, move it along, like I'm done with that. And I have to tell you that since we've been working remotely since March, early March, I haven't printed anything. And
Same.
so the total print guy boomer, have been able to survive without a printer. So listen to your students.
Yep. Totally agree.
Okay, I know we kind of covered this question at the top of the hour, but I am seeing a lot here at the bottom of the hour, so I just kind of want to go over it again. If a student was assigned a roommate and the roommate has decided not to come to campus in the fall, will they be assigned a new roommate?
They will likely be assigned a new roommate, and that's mostly just because students may want to change rooms. We're not getting many new admitted students right now, but we're moving. People are already requesting room changes just for a variety of reasons. So we ask that everyone plan and expect to have a roommate and to be ready, that they not spread out and take up the whole space, because we may make those changes pretty quickly. So we need to leave room for room changes to happen and be ready to embrace and love a new roommate coming into the room.
That sounds wonderful, Maggie.
I'm seeing lots of questions about testing, and I want to preface before I ask any specific questions that we are still learning more about the testing process that will be administered for students before they come to campus. And so some of your more very specific questions we probably won't be able to answer at this current moment, because more guidance will be coming out in the next few days and more emails will be sent to your student in the next few days, and by default you are surrounding testing. The general sense of the questions, though, is are we going to get our test in time to get on a plane and come to Williamsburg? And what happens if we don't get our results back by the time we arrive on campus?
I can tell you that the company that we've hired is going to send an email with an app that students can download. They'll be able to sign up for a location. We've had a lot of inquiries from families that they're going on vacation, they're already in Williamsburg, they're doing that. And so it will allow you to sort of change the address and where it will be sent. You know, my recommendation is to make sure that you're doing it as quickly as you can prior to as soon as you get it. Like, don't hold on to it for a few days to send it back. The company tells us that they can get tests their back and results prior to everyone starting at William and Mary. But I do want to be clear from the Dean of Students standpoint, as well as Student Affairs, that you have to have that test complete before you get here. We have to be able to verify as you're moving in that you have tested negative and you have completed that process. It's not that it's harsh, but we need to ensure that everyone that is coming on campus has tested negative and that everybody has participated in that opportunity. So, and this is really kind of hard to hear, that if you move in and you got all your stuff and you haven't had that test done, the answer is going to be you can't move in today. So we don't want to say that to anyone. So please make sure that your student is checking their email. I know it's coming very soon, within the next couple of days, an email with instructions and how to download the app and what to do. So please know that more information is coming, and I wish we could answer every specific question for you, but often we get the information just a few minutes before we share it with you.
Wonderful, thank you. And that is all the time that we have today. Now, before I close this out, there are still 76 questions open in our queue. And I am very sorry that we were not able to get to all of your questions. However, there was only 2 of us and we only have so much time. And we're grateful for the time that Mark and Maggie were able to spend with us this afternoon. Now, I do encourage you, if you did not get your question answered, please go online and ask us at families@wm.edu. I'm unsure if I'm able to capture all of the questions from this session, so it's a great idea to go ahead, open your email now, whatever that question was, and send it to families@wm.edu. This session was recorded, so if you stuck with us during the whole time and you want to be able to reference it, or if you just joined us late and you want to know what we covered during our first hour, this will be posted to our YouTube channel and it will be sent to your email address in our newsletter next Thursday. I want to thank Mark and Maggie again for joining us. I know that was a quick 2 hours and it was a lot of rapid fire questions, and so I'm grateful that you stuck with me while I asked you those questions. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you, families, for joining us, and we will see you again next Friday. Goodbye,
Maggie
everybody.
Evans, we love you.
Can't wait to have you here.